Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Live For You live stream. Today we're going to be talking about how to know when a guy is serious about you, how to know when someone's interested, what are the signs, what are the questions, what are the behaviors. But we're going to give it from a perspective that's hopefully quite edifying from a biblical view. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. I've seen a lot of you watching the series, but about half of you aren't subscribed. So make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And I'm going to be bringing on my lovely guests and check out the episodes beforehand if you have not seen them already. So here are my guests. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
energy. All right, cool. So I just want you guys to go around and introduce who you are and your relationship status.
All right, I'll start. So my name is Comfort. I am married, and I've been married for a year and 6 months. It'll be 6 months, a year and 6 months on the 28th of this month, so in 3 days.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
And
Congrats.
Saze, what about you?
My
sorry.
name is Osaze, and I'm in a relationship. Not married, but in a relationship.
Come on. No problem. Great. Charles is pending, so I will introduce him. So Charles is married. He's in the last episode that we had. He's been married for around 2 years. So yeah, the topic today is about basically, what are the signs when someone's interested? I think oftentimes, at least the people I speak to, they can be quite confused, especially the women. They can be quite confused, and they feel like it could be a lot clearer on the part of the guys. But we're going to discuss it. So let's start with Comfort. When it came to your relationship, I guess, or relationships you've observed, was it obvious that your partner was interested? Like, what were some signs that you saw?
Okay, so before I met my husband, I noticed that a lot of Christian guys would they would show interest and then they would grow cold, and so I had that expectation from my husband that at some point he'll grow cold, just like a lot of the other Christian guys that I've seen. But actually with him, it was like he was growing hotter and hotter by the day. I was like, slow down, I felt like he was like coming on strong, so that was my experience. But I mean, other people's experiences are different, but because of my expectation, I pushed him away because I expected him to grow cold, but actually that was not what I received. So that was
Well, hotter and hotter. We love to see hotter. No, that's cool. We're going to dig into the different types of approaches, and we're definitely going to hone in on that one. But Asaze, what about you? I know, obviously, you're the man, and you have some very unique views. So I'm interested to hear, like, what has your approach been in terms of like your relationship, or just what's your stance on it?
For me, I would say it's more from a place of presenting things to God. Okay. So we all have our preferences, and I think it's good to be honest about that and presenting that to God, but then allowing him to have the final say, kind of thing. So I've never been in a position of me being able to say at any time, oh, this is the person, and final in my head. For me, it's just a thing of presenting things to God and allowing him to just speak to me constantly and give me confirmation. So for me, in terms of pursuing, I think we can only pursue as far as he allows us to, kind of thing, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? I'm interested.
As in, because I think it is a delicate situation. I think you mentioned people can be misled, women can be misled, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a small thing to play with. It's not a small thing to play with someone's heart. So for me, before certain promises are made, whether implicitly or explicitly, the person should have that type of confirmation from God beforehand, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, Charles, jumping off of that then, thanks for joining. obviously, you know, as I said, you know, as a man, it's really important that you're not playing with someone's heart. No problem, no problem. So what was your experience with your wife? Was it similar in the sense of like you knew that, you know, you didn't want to play with her, or what was that like?
First of all, you can hear me fine, yeah?
Yeah, it's okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. So I'll say when I first met her, I don't know, there was just something about her that just took my eye. And to be honest, I can't say when I first met her, you know, the first thing in my mind was, you know, this woman and whatnot. But, you know, getting to know her and spending time with her, I realized, you know, how much of an amazing person she was. And I grew to have a huge respect for her. And for me, that decision came very quickly. You know, this was someone that I wanted to know more. This was someone I wanted to spend more time with. This was someone that I wanted to get closer to. And yeah, just kind of grew from there.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. And I guess you took the time to get to know her before you kind of plunged in, I guess. That's interesting. I think what I've seen is that definitely, I don't know, guys have very interesting approaches. So obviously, Comfort, you're another woman on this panel, and you know, we've experienced some things, and like there are some guys that are just they just don't know, and it's okay to not know, but I think when it gets to a point where you're like messing around with someone's emotions, I think that's where it can be problematic. And oftentimes we think, you know, that's a very worldly thing, you know, only worldly guys do that. But from experiences and just even talking to friends, like it's clear that that happens in the Christian sphere too. Like there's guys that they'll just play with your heart like it's a seesaw. And so why do you think people do that? Like, I guess Charles understands it. Like, why do you think there's this thing where people are, you know, unsure, and so they're like messing around with people, messing with their emotions? What is it? Explain for the people.
I think one thing is, as Christians, because even though I was just saying, for me personally, I need confirmation from God. I think at the same time that can also be not a problem, but I think we can over spiritualize things. As in, God can put something in our face and say something to us, but even not just concerning relationships, but concerning other aspects of life. As Christians, we need sometimes like God to write it in the sky. This is what I want you to do, kind of thing. And so often, because God hasn't done that, we don't have the confidence to go about something without feeling like I'm moving on through the flesh or based on my own understanding, kind of thing. And so I think it's a poor understanding of how much God does speak, kind of thing, with different ways in which he does speak, and we kind of limit it to certain things, and so we feel like he hasn't spoken yet. I have all these signs, but I'm still in it, but he hasn't spoken yet, when we know he has, kind of thing. So I guess it's a lot of the time is that we want extra confirmation, kind of thing.
Yes, I can definitely relate. But yeah, no, I think that's good. What about the rest of you? Like, what's your take on that? Do you think it's a thing of like, there's this thing called procrastination, apparently, where people can just be praying, but you know that God has spoken, as she said, it says it, but you're not moving. Yeah, what's your views on that? And I'll go to Charles, I guess, because yeah. Oh gosh, I think there's some technical difficulties. All right, cool. Comfort. Let's go to you.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting that Osaze says, you know, it's sometimes when people are unsure, because the way it comes across from a female's point of view is that like you are being intentional about, you know, messing around, like, you know, and it just comes like you're being irresponsible, you know. And the way what I used to think it was immaturity, because I felt that, you know, a guy showing not being like explicit about a relationship, not even being able, like, even if a girl questions him on, okay, what are we, or, you know, not being able to give an answer, like, I felt like that was immaturity. But then now you say that could be that the person is unsure, they don't know how to express that. So that's very interesting. But for me, as a female, I always felt that, you know, I have to like guard my heart. Even the Bible says that I should guard my heart. So I had to, I think maybe I guarded it a bit too much. But I felt that I needed I needed to protect myself because I didn't know what people's intentions were, like guys' intentions were. And some guys were not very clear, you know. So that is, I think it does help when the person is clear. I mean, there's nothing wrong in just being friends with someone, but you know, sometimes a woman's mind can just be going everywhere. Like, you know, just one conversation can turn into like something else, you know? And you're already thinking about marriage, like how, you know. So I think that sometimes just coming at a place of like friendship, like making it clear from the beginning, like, oh, you know, like I just want to get to know you, or like you're cool, like I like spending time with you, like there's nothing more than that, you know, so the person understands that, you know, like you're just friends, you know, so that they don't have expectations that cannot be met, because that's what I feel like it is sometimes, where people, you know, as females, just their expectations are raised to a certain level that shouldn't be, you know, just not necessary. And then at the end of it, you find out that actually the guy wasn't into you, you know, but you've already thought so far ahead, you know. So kind of, and I think it's on the females as well sometimes to clarify, to ask for clarification, not just because the way a man's mind works is very different from the way a woman's mind works. So you may be thinking something, but that's not what the other person is communicating. So always ask for clarification. There's nothing wrong in that, you know, because if the person was really into you, of course they wouldn't want you to see the other side. They wouldn't want you to think that they're not into you. They would really, really want you to think that they are into you, because they would want to like kind of keep any other guy from coming to you. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's interesting. That really is. I think actually it could be both though, because I think oftentimes we say that, you know, the women, their mind can go all the way, but men, that some men are like that too, you know, their minds can also travel, you know, and they're like, oh, this is like, they can almost like picture a life with you, and it's like, well, you're just at friendship stage. And so I think it's interesting because it does happen both ways, but actually say I think it is a communication thing of just saying like, okay, where are we at now, like what is this? Obviously I know some people have an issue with what are we, especially when you say it too soon. There's like all this pressure on me. So even with that question, it says with a what are we question, how, I don't know if you've ever got that question, but how was your experience of that?
How was my experience of that question?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of pressure sometimes, because I think the person themselves could be asking the same question, as in, right, anytime when that's happened, let's just say in my situation, I've been thinking the same thing. I don't know. For me, it's always just literally, it's always been difficult simply because in my head, I've just always thought I don't call the shots concerning this kind of thing. So I am waiting to find out what it is as well, kind of thing. So for me, that's always been a difficult question to answer. If I cut it short, that's literally been very difficult for me to deal with anytime anything like that's happened.
I'm laughing for a reason, but yes, that's interesting. Do you ever communicate that to the girl though? Do you ever say like, I'm waiting for God, like I don't actually know? Because that's where the issue comes, because it's like the guy would be like, oh, I don't know myself, but there's no communication. So she's just like, what are we? He's like in his head, what are we? And no one knows. And it's just messy.
Yeah, I think as well, like bouncing off what Comfort said, I think trying to be in a situation where I think if as Christians we didn't care, then it's an easy question to answer. To me, it's less wahala if you just say yes, yeah, this is it, this is the situation, because then you don't need to. But at the same time, then you're not actually being responsible for guarding that person or for protecting that person. So to me, to not be misleading, it's best to avoid saying things that we're not sure of. But then it does come with the sticky situation of you're in a situation where you don't know if you're in a relationship or if you're not in a relationship, and it's causing confusion. But I personally think it's a delicate situation, and it's not worth playing with people's hearts, to me, kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Can I just add the word boundaries? Like, if you don't know, you're unsure, then make sure your boundaries are tight with that person. Like, even in courtship, even when you know that you're going to marry the person, you still have to maintain boundaries because you're not married to them as a Christian. So, like, boundaries in friendship are very important too. So, like, if I know that this guy's not sure and I'm not sure, then, you know, maintaining those boundaries are so important. Like, you know, no late night conversations, you know, like no unnecessary communication. Like, if communication veers off to a certain direction, then we're like, okay, you know, it's my responsibility to cut it off, you know. And I think sometimes as females, sometimes we don't want to seem too harsh. That's the reason why we allow things. But I mean, you have to speak to my husband on that one. I was quite particular. Because I was like, no, I'm not gonna kind of allow, you know, someone to just, you know, play. And I think he respected me for that, actually, because I had a standard and I had what I was going at, you know. And over time, I relaxed because I was like, okay, he's trustworthy. But, you know, in the beginning stage, my boundaries were tight because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to understand where this person was coming from.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm very similar to you, Comfort, when it comes to having very high boundaries and having high standards at the start, especially. I think it's just important to charge your friends. Yeah, I think it's important just to make sure that your heart is guarded, because I think this emotion thing, sometimes we can overlook how powerful it can be, like this feelings, emotions and stuff, and how quickly it can go from 0 to 100 if you're not guarding yourself. And so, yeah, it definitely is important to have that. Charles, I'm going to come to you. What's your take on this in terms of, I guess, being asked, oh, what are we? I don't know if you were asked that question, or how did you deal with that question? You there? Oh, technical difficulties. I'm pretty sure you're frozen on my screen. Yep, you are. Okay. Well, let's keep it moving until he's back. Are you here? No, he's not here. Okay, cool. So okay, cool. So on this topic then, in terms of this what are we topic again, what advice then would you give, Comfort, to a guy then who, you know, or even actually no, to girls, yeah. What advice would you give to a Christian girl who's in a situation that's wondering, okay, well, I'm with this person, I have no idea what we are. I'm scared to ask. Like, what sort of general advice would you give to that sort of person?
Wow, that's interesting, because I've never really asked what are we before, so I don't know. I've just kind of like guarded myself, be like, oh, okay, no, wrong turn, that kind of thing. I think I would probably say give yourself time, like maybe kind of if you're feeling very unsure, maybe step away from the situation and reevaluate rather than continuing that confusion. Just be like, maybe just, you know, kind of, it depends on how much communication you're having with that person as well. So if it's like every day, maybe just bring it down to like every other day, or just, you know, because also you have to kind of evaluate like how this relationship is affecting you as an individual, like, you know, like you able to just do normal stuff. And so I would say step back and reevaluate first before asking questions. Like, maybe ask friends as well, like, oh, am I reading too much into it? Like, what do you think? You know, because sometimes as females, sometimes our mind travels. So maybe ask other people, do you think I'm reading too much into it? Do you think I have reason he likes me, or am I just making it up in my mind? Like, ask other people around you that may be observing, and then maybe step back. And if you feel like you have grounds to ask, then you can ask. But I would say ask other people, because sometimes you can't just rely on what's in your mind. So ask people like friends, or friends of friends that have observed you,
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think that thing of like godly counsel that's in the Bible about, getting a multiple counsel, there's safety in that. And so, especially, I guess, male and females, it's important to just ask people that know your character. They know how you naturally behave and stuff. And then, see what they say. Especially if they know both of you, that's even better, because they'll be able to tell. If they only know you, that's still fine. Like, just ask them, like, okay, what am I doing too much? Is it too much for the situation? Yeah, exactly. Asaze, then, in terms of from a man's perspective, then, what would you say, or what advice would you then give to a guy who's like, oh, I think I'm confusing her. What do I do? What would you say to him?
Okay, to a guy who says he thinks that he's confusing her.
Yeah, but he obviously is interested.
I think it depends on why he feels that way. I think if someone's conflicted because they don't know what they want, then I think it's a different situation to they don't know whether it's God's will. If it's a thing of them not knowing what they want, then I think they need to be a bit less selfish and stop playing about with the person. Like Comfort said, I think it's important for them to have boundaries. And so I think it's their responsibility to do the best they can to not lead the person on. If it's a thing of they are unsure because of circumstances beyond their preferences, more of a thing of, let's just say, God's will, then I think it's important for them to be transparent and to communicate that. I think as well as that, I just think whether male or female, I think a difficult thing when it comes to this is that it's hard to look at it from the perspective of God, or to even have, okay, so like for myself, I remember times of not wanting to have certain conversations, or not even in terms of boundaries, not even wanting to get close to a certain extent, because I don't want that to blur what I'm hearing from God. Because it's very easy to now come and say, this is what God is saying to me, because you desire it so much that you can't hear anything else. And so every time you ask for something or ask for a sign, you ignore everything else. You ignore the stuff that don't necessarily match up with the standard that God has set for you, because now your heart is involved too much. So for me personally, I think for both men and women, I think it's important to try and remove emotion as much as possible and make it a thing of actual inquiry, and some people doing like their due diligence kind of thing. So actually almost assessing the person spiritually, back and forth with God, and then in terms of what we think are preferences, etc., and removing emotion from it completely. Because I think a lot of the time when that question does come, it's because someone is emotionally already involved a lot more than they probably would want to be. But I think if we step back and we just observe things, it's a lot easier, perhaps.
That's good. That's good. Comfort, do you agree? Actually, you're nodding. Is that sort of your...
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, by the time you start asking, what are we? You're already very emotionally involved. And that's why I suggested stepping back, because it's very hard when you're like emotionally involved to be clear in your judgment and in your evaluation. So yeah, definitely, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I would actually agree to you. I think stepping back is good. Like, even if it's times where you guys are, especially if you're deep in, like, kind of what you're saying, as Isaiah, about those times where you wouldn't want it to get to a certain place. You wouldn't want your judgment to be clouded. I think sometimes it can be super hard to step back at that point, but it's so important because you can just get clarity. Sometimes when you're in the depths of these things, like, you're just blinded. Like, honestly, it's just hard to see what you need to see. And so having godly counsel, but also then taking just breaks at times and just like, okay, God, am I doing too much? Like, is this actually your will? I think that's important. Be able to remove ourselves from that situation to be able to see clearly. And so starting from you, Asaze, then what are some signs then that you would say? Obviously, this is very subjective anyway, but what are some signs, or even things that you did when you realize, okay, I am serious about this person, and I know I'm serious? Like, what are some things that you do, or you'd recommend, or people do, to show that yes, I'm not a joke, man. I can show her that I'm serious.
I think I feel you're asking me about signs that I've experienced, but in terms of signs that people I think should give, so signs that a man should give to a woman is what you're asking me.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on what the person desires, like the person's love languages, etc. Whether people pay attention to that, but I think we all read stuff differently based on our experiences growing up, etc. So for some people, I think just verbally actually explaining stuff and articulating stuff, it's a lot to them. And so once you cross that boundary, you can't go back because you've said it. Like people would actually say, but you said this before, kind of thing. So for them, that is it. For other people, it could be actually crossing boundaries and doing certain acts of service or introducing them to certain people. It's like, to them, there's no way you would do this for me or introduce me to this person if it wasn't that kind of thing. So I think noticing whatever the person begins to appreciate and receiving that way, and just doing that, if I'm honest, but in a way that is specific to that person and will be appreciated and valued specifically by that person, perhaps.
So then that would have to be a conversation, right? In the sense of, for you to know what they would appreciate. So
and I think naturally, I really do think people should be friends and actually learn about the person beforehand, kind of thing. And I think in doing so, naturally, there will be things that will be picked up that you'll just know, okay, cool, this person actually loves words. If I say certain things, you can see the change in their appearance, the change in their whole demeanor, kind of thing. So I think just learning the person.
That's good. And that comes through friendship. I know you're an avid supporter of friendship. And I'm saying in a good way. Like, it's actually good. By the way, I'm saying it's actually important. Like, in friendships, like, the foundation has to be friendship. Like, if you just run into romance, it can just be a problem, a big problem. So I think, friendship is definitely important. Thank you. Comfort. When it comes to, I guess, you said that when you were pursued, it got hotter and hotter. What sort of signs then were you shown?
And so my situation, so my husband met me, and we found out that we went to the same university, but not at the same time. So there was that kind of link. Oh wow, and so he was like, he just wanted to get to know me, and so he was, like, contacting me every day or every other day, just like being very intentional. Apparently I didn't respond to some of the text messages. I don't believe that, but I feel like I did, but that's what he said. And just the intentionality, the consistency as well. And one thing I noticed that my husband did when he was interested was that he, like, every opportunity to get to spend time with me, he would take it. So like any time that he had an evening free, he would say, oh, what are you doing on this evening? Or like like a weekend free, or what you doing then? Like, he'd always try and fill in my time, until I realized that, like, every week I was seeing him every week, and like, he was just like, my whole month I had him in a slot at some point. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, this guy is like really filling in my time. And then before you know it, I'm head over heels, love him so much, even though I was like, oh, I'm not really interested in the beginning. So I think like trying to spend more time with the person, being more intentional. And then also being like, listening to what they're saying. So for example, there was a gift that he gifted me with. But I was just like having random conversation, and he gave me this gift, and I was like, oh, like, that was very strange, because I wasn't expecting. I was just talking, how you talk to a friend. So like, listening to the details of the thing that the person appreciates. Those were the signs for me. And then also telling me that he wanted to marry me. He was very direct. I never wondered with my husband whether he wanted. From the time he met me, he was like, wow, like, it's like, oh, I found what I'm looking for. He didn't say it in those words, but
Yeah.
it kind of, I knew that, that's what he was communicating. And yeah, that was it. And he filled in the time. And then, here we are.
Yeah. That's cool. Like, yeah, I think you definitely have guys who are they just know what they want and they will just go at it until they get what they want. And I guess you have the other contrast in where some guys are unsure and it takes a lot longer. Yeah, it takes a lot longer. But yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of women would prefer that approach, but I know it's not like that all the time, which is fair. So Charles, now that you're here, we're just talking about signs. It's all good. What signs did you show your wife when you knew that she was like, when you were serious about her and you realized you were serious? What sort of behaviors were you showing to her to show that you were a serious candidate, basically?
Hello, guys. My name's Charles. No, I'm joking. This is the last time I used my phone. I don't know what's wrong with it. It was working fine, and so lesson learned. Never use my phone again. So sorry. Repeat the question again. What signs of seriousness did I show to my wife?
Yeah. If you were serious, that is.
I mean, personally, I would say in the beginning, it's funny actually. My wife, I always tell her she's like basically my first relationship, like proper relationship. I've been with maybe women here and there, but proper relationship, where what they'll call a relationship. And one thing I'll say is in the beginning, I was probably one of those guys that wasn't too sure. So yeah, I would say maybe for me there was a lot of mixed signals and mixed signs, which I'm sure confused her, which I'm sure didn't necessarily give her a surety to a certain degree. But I think as time went on and I really got to know her, I became more serious, which I find it's not. I'm not saying that's the case with most guys, but I find that's the case with a lot of guys. It's some guys are serious. It depends. I think it depends where you are in your life, personally, from my perspective. So if you're in a place where you know what you want, you've got certain things in place. I'm not talking about like a house or whatnot. I'm just talking about comfortability within yourself. You've got certain things set there already, and this is kind of what you're looking for to fill it in. At that stage, I couldn't say I was looking for marriage or I was looking to settle down. Definitely not. So I think for me, I met her. We built something. Once I got to know her, I started to, I guess, show her my commitment through just, I guess just not necessarily gifts and whatnot and taking her places or taking her out. Just kind of, I think it's the discussions we started having, future discussions, plans, and, just discussing about what we both want from ourselves. Proper serious discussions. It went from just trivial matters and just, banter or whatever to proper serious discussions about the future and whatnot. And I think as time went on, she realized that I was a bit more serious about her. And I definitely, I put in a lot of time and a lot of effort with her in regards to trying to spend, because we lived in opposite ends. She lived in East London, I lived in South London. And so it wasn't easy for us to necessarily see each other, but we communicated all the time. And I think, I mean, I would say for a woman, she never really has that complete reassurance until you kind of bring up the marriage world. And so I think to a certain degree, until that topic came up, that's when she maybe knew I was serious, which took a while, if I'm honest. It took a while, but we got there at the end. And I'm not sure that completely answered your question, but
No, it did. I mean, you said that when you started to get serious, you guys were, when you started to get serious, you were speaking about more serious things. Marriage eventually came up with you, and you just wanted to spend more time and just take it more seriously, basically. That's just what you're saying. That's cool. That's good. And in terms of like, are there any questions that you guys would say that you, when you started to, you know, get serious with the person you're with, or comfort the other way around, were there any questions or like just like topics that came up that you're like, okay, cool, this is getting serious? Is there anything that came to mind that you started asking or wanted to know?
So for me, I think I did more of the question asking in our relationship. At the beginning, I asked him about where, like about his dreams, his goals, and stuff like that. One of the first question my husband actually asked me when we started talking was about my testimony, like, how did you become a Christian? Because that is a very important question. What was your salvation experience? What about my upbringing as well, like just getting to know me, you know. And then as we progressed, you know, I started to ask him about like his future plans. He started to ask me about my future plans, and then started to talk about family, you know, the kind of, you know, families that we were brought up in, and the kind of families that we want to raise, you know, kind of, you know, bring up our children in, and values and stuff like that. And then we started talking about doctrine, because my husband and I are from different denominations. So yeah, so then we started to get into that and stuff like that. But I think we started with more the spiritual things. Yeah. And maybe because of the way we met, and because of the assurance that he had in himself, that, oh, like, you know, he had been looking for something and he now found what he was looking for. So he came with that kind of confidence. It's like, if it wasn't the case, the questions might have not been so direct like that. But those were the questions that we started having.
Yeah, that's good. And I like that end bit, because I think I've definitely seen that sometimes, if the more sure people can be about you, like the more direct their questions tend to be, like, and how quick it comes faster. That's something I've kind of noticed. But aside from that, let's go to you, because I know, you know, you said that sometimes it can be a thing where people just aren't sure. And so when you did get more sure, what sort of things did you start wanting to know, or even discuss or ask?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much the same kind of thing. I think in the beginning stages, there's certain questions I'm always gonna ask, and irrespective of whether, I think you guys can probably tell me if this is immature, but initially for me, I would prefer for the person not to even know whether I'm interested or not. I would just rather try and learn as much as possible about the person. But then even then, there's some questions that will give it away. And I wouldn't care whether it's given away or not. I need to know the answer to some questions. Like, just if certain people don't believe in certain things, or you know, Christianity is just a Sunday thing. If there's certain questions I have to ask from the beginning. But then as well as that, questions about the person's purpose and the person's future, I'm not gonna wait months until I answer those questions. I need to find out now, so I know whether I'm wasting my time, kind of thing. So I think throughout the whole early stages, it's just question after question. Everything's just an interview. I just want to questions as possible. But at the same time, I would say there's certain questions that I wouldn't ask. And there's even topics where I actually explicitly say I think it's too early to speak about these type of stuff. If I'm honest, let's just say marriage, for example, I would prefer not to speak about that. It's not necessarily things inside marriage, but stuff like just fantasizing kind of thing about like this many kids and this type of house and people want to be in the same room or not. For me personally, those type of things, if you're having that conversation and you're not sure about certain things, then you have every reason for someone to want to bottle you or whatever, because you've been leading them on as much as possible, kind of thing. So to me, those questions can wait until there's some type of clarity, until you're sure to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, that's good. Before you unmute again, so what were, you said there's some questions that you didn't care if it gave it away. What can you give some examples of what you would ask quite early on?
Stuff like questions. I feel like in today's society, there's things that trigger everyone, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the truth is, there's some women that are not comfortable earning more than their man, kind of thing, stuff like that. There's some people that are not comfortable with someone that wants to be involved in ministry. There's people, I know the things that I desire deeply, that I believe God has put on my heart, and I think often when someone is so passionate about something and you don't care about it, it starts to get to the point where being passive isn't good enough, kind of thing. Like, you begin to pull the person down, or you begin to be an annoyance to the other person because you're so passionate about this thing, and it's like, why is this so important to you? So questions about stuff like what the person's passionate about, kind of thing, and how that aligns with myself, I would just have to ask that straight away. If those kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's facts. Basically, when it comes to, I think just what, and it kind of almost ties to like purpose and calling in a way. It's like, what are the things that kind of trigger you? What are the things that kind of just get you going, that motivate you? That's big. Charles, what about you? When it comes to questions, specific questions you would ask when you knew you were serious.
As Ozzy just said, especially when he mentioned about the you becoming an annoyance or you becoming a thingy to the person. No, that's very important, because obviously when you've got two different people, like you said, there's different interests and different purposes. Sometimes there's different directions, and it's important that to some degree you're either going to support each other or you have to find a way to make it work. Or like as Ozzy said, it does become like counterproductive, and sometimes even you can grow resentful for someone not supporting or not seeing your vision or not kind of following your direction. But that aside, some of the questions that I'll say I asked, if I remember, it's been a long time. I think just asked her about her family, because I'm a very family orientated person. For me, I love my family, and I like to say we're a close bunch, even though I think I'm quite annoying, but to them, I mean, for me, family is everything. So I would say I asked her a lot about her family, and a lot about what she wanted to do, career goals and whatnot. And one thing I admired about my wife is I've been in and out of ministry probably for a little while before I met her, and there was a point where I wasn't really into, I want to say, the word or into church. I kind of drifted. And as soon as I met her, one of the first things she did was take me to her church. She kept on asking me to come. She kept on, telling me, come, come, come. So we would always have discussions about that. She would always ask me, what's your faith? Do you believe in God? And how important it is to her. And one thing about her is, she made that known from the gate that that if I was to have a future with her, that's something that I would not necessarily. She didn't necessarily drag me there, but she definitely, made it a point. And slowly and surely, I started going, and now I go to the same church as her, and we've been going for a while, and so that was a lot of the conversations that we had around that time. Which is her asking me about my faith. And of course, she asked me the generic questions. What do you want to do? What do you do for a living? What's your goals? What's your aspirations? And whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest. Lots of conversations in terms of questions and whatnot. But I feel like, sorry, I'm going to blab on a bit. But one thing I'll say is these things are important, and of course, for just clarity and for you to just know how the person thinks, or where the person's, where they're going or whatnot. I know for a lot of people that's of high importance, but sometimes I feel like these are just questions. These are just, people can say anything, isn't it? So I wouldn't lean too much on those type of conversations, even though they're very important and whatnot. I think it's more about seeing than believing, and that's the way I look at it.
No, that's good.
I do agree with you on that though. Like, as well as what they tell you, also check what they're showing you. Because I would hold on to what my husband said, but I'd also watch his character. And what I did was I also asked, because we went to the same university, so we knew people in common. So I asked people about him, like, oh, what do you think about this guy? Like, like random conversation, just getting to know who he was, because obviously we didn't go at the same time. So just trying to find out, the kind of person he is, as well as what he tells me. But what are other people's report about him? What do other people say about him? Yeah. So
Yeah.
Consistent with
if I can add to that, I think that is so important. In terms of even, I think there's certain things you wouldn't see about a person. I think even there's certain things you wouldn't see about ourselves until we're put into certain circumstances, kind of thing. But then there's certain things you wouldn't see about someone until you see how they interact with other people. And I think in early stages, you could be the love of that person's life, so you're special to them. They need to prioritize you or wash your gun, kind of thing. But then the people that are with them every day, that they're comfortable with, that will one day be me. Hopefully not comfortable, but do you get what I'm saying? So if you're treating them like crap, then it will scare me for myself, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think as well as that, I think the thing that has helped me so much is that confirmations from God, that even that, okay, this is what I want you to be doing right now, kind of thing. Because I think if not, there could be time periods where I remember one of my friends saying to me, me and him were speaking about things we want to do in the future, stuff like marriage, etc. And he was saying the best advice his pastor gave him was that his pastor said to him, when things are tough in their marriage, that he thanks God that he asked for a yes and God gave him a yes, kind of thing. And he had certain confirmations from God, kind of thing. Because I think when I tried to lean on my own understanding, there's so many times I would quit on certain things, kind of thing, or I would probably panic or have fear, kind of thing. But then trusting in the fact that God has said something makes it a lot easier to ignore my understanding and to be patient. And then I begin to see what God is revealing and that, oh, I misunderstood this. I judged this wrong, kind of thing. I doubted the person. And now God has revealed more about the person. But initially I was never going to see that kind of thing.
That's
if you get what I mean. Yeah.
No, that's really good. I agree. And I've heard that too. When couples married for ages, and then even actually if they go through hardships and stuff, sometimes they turn back to God and like, well, God, you confirm that this person is the person for me, the person that I'm meant to marry. And so that helps them to keep pushing. They're like, well, God, it may not make sense right now, but I'm going to push through this because I know this is from you, this is of you. And so I think that can definitely help in the long term too, like even in marriage. What I was going to say,
sorry.
Go on, Charles.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to add, I feel like, as Ozzy said, you pray and because one thing I always said, even when I was young, is I always prayed and asked God. There was a point where I was just really just down, and I prayed and I asked God, please just find me a good woman, find me someone that will love me, someone that will love me for who I am, and just take care of me, not necessarily in that way, but just take care of me. And when you come across that person, I feel like the difference between one thing is when I met my wife and when I spoke to other women, the difference is something felt different. I don't know what it is. And one day I asked her, why why me? Why do you want me? And I had to just ask her these questions, and she said, to be honest, I don't. She said I don't know, but not in that way. But it's just, even for me, it's like I always say to her, I feel like you're a blessing. I feel like God honestly put you in my life for a reason, and whatever reason could that be, then other than to make you my wife. And I know it sounds like a cliche and blah blah, but I feel like sometimes you have to follow your intuition. People are not perfect, so did I like everything I saw? No, and I don't think you will. They say sometimes it's not necessarily about ignoring things, but it's better to sometimes focus on the positive than negatives, because they say if you look for something, you'll find it. Everyone has, if you want to say something that you might dislike or whatnot. But I think the most important thing is to focus on how that person treats you, and how they are towards you and whatnot. Because let's say you notice a character flaw or a certain thing, some people get scared away and think, oh no, but the reality is no one's perfect,
No, that's good.
To add to that as well, like in terms of character flaws, I think the thing that I think about is, what is that person guided by? Like, is it the word of God? If it's the word of God that they're guided by, sorry, then I'm sure that God will guide them in whatever decisions that they make, as long as they are God's child. God's word, God's spirit can get to them, and that is the confidence that you can have that, Lord, you will speak to them in a way, even if it's me, because it's not just the other person. Sometimes it's me. Like if there is something that is not helping this marriage, and I'm doing it, then Lord, by your grace, help me. So I think it's what that person is guided by. Is it the word of God or not? So I think those are that's the main point for me when it comes to, like, flaws and things that you can be scared about, that you might run away from, or maybe not, and you follow their track record and see that, okay, actually this person is quite consistent, and
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask something? Listen, is it is it a must that if when you was looking for your other half, or even for you, Abigail, that your partner or your future husband is, obviously ideally you want them to be a believer and to be in Christ, and to go to church or whatnot, but is that a must?
For me, are you asking the question directly to me?
Yeah, to both of you.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, it was definitely that it was a must. He was a believer. It was a must that he was a church-going believer, born-again Christian. And so I mentioned earlier that my husband and I went to different denominations. So there were obviously certain doctrines that I didn't really understand. So that for me was quite confusing, like going through that phase. Yes, we're both Christians, but the way we do things are very different. The church services are very different. So I had to go through that phase. But that wasn't a big deal, but I didn't do at the time. But in terms of the fundamentals of that, yeah, he was a Christian, and he was a Bible believing Christian. That was so important to me.
Yeah. And even just like not being unequally yoked, I think that's quoted a lot, because it's almost foundational, at least for me, like both being believers, not just believers by word, but by behavior, by like, what would you believe in? What do you do? How do you act? How do you love? That's important for me. I'm going to quickly jump to this question, or this point about a good sign. If someone's interested in you, serious about you, a good sign is that he will be comfortable talking about personal things to you. So let's talk on that briefly. We'll start with you, Saze, before you leave. What's your take on that? Would you say that when you knew, you were sure about the person you're with, that you felt more comfortable opening up?
Not necessarily. Actually, not to be quite controversial, but to just be 100% honest. Because I can completely see that point of view, and I think it could be for some people. I think it depends on the person, actually, because there are some people where that would definitely be the case, because they're so kind of uptight kind of thing about their personal business. But I think it can cause confusion as well, because there's some people where any of my close friends, I would open up to them. And I think naturally the way male and female relationships work is, if anytime I've had a close female friend, they're more nurturing than my male friends. There's certain things I won't open up to my male friends. Kind of thing. But then my female friends wouldn't. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, I've now seen them in that way. And I think that could be misleading for many people, kind of thing. I think that's rather something to kind of watch out for, that it doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't know what you guys think of that, but that's how I kind of see it.
That's interesting. I think it's not even me. Panelists, what do you guys think about that question, that point?
Sorry, Comfort, you can go first if you want.
Sorry. Yeah. So I think I would agree with Osaze that it's not. It depends on the person's personality. It doesn't mean that my husband was quite open with me in the beginning. Like when he first met, he was opening up his mind to me. I was like, yeah, this is nice. Because what I heard was like guys, you know, it's really hard for them to trust you and all that kind of stuff. Like you have to really prove yourself that you're trustworthy over time. But that was the beginning stages. But as we progress in the relationship, I noticed that there was a lot more layers to him. And there's still now, I'm still learning and getting to know him. And was some things he would be a bit closed about, and that's fine. That's normal for him in his personality and his character. So yes, there'll be a certain level of personal things that he will tell you or the person may tell you, but they'll always keep something to themselves. And over time, when they trust you, then they'll start to reveal. And I think in marriage now, like I'm getting to see a more softer side of my husband. And I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful, because like in the beginning, it was more like there was a bit of a guard. But now over time, like he's become a bit more transparent with me. Yeah, so I got a taste of that in the beginning, but then it wasn't consistently like that when we were courting. But then now marriage, like I get a bit more of a taste of that transparency and that opening up and all that kind of stuff. So I think it just depends on the personality of the person. But as long as they're not intentionally withholding information from you, you know, like there are some people who they say the sky is green and you look outside, the sky is blue, and they're like adamant that no, the sky is definitely green, and they're like withholding the truth from you. In that case, that's a bit dodgy. If it's just a matter of like they just don't want to say just yet, like over time, you know, you see that they're not trying to hide from you, they're just, that's their personality, then I wouldn't take it to heart.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And Charles, do you want to jump on that? Is it the same for you too?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I'll say is, for me, I'm a bit of an open book anyway. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and to be honest, that's not to say that I go around crying everywhere. But I mean, when you meet me, and especially for my wife, she knew a lot. How can I say? She knew a lot about me, enough about me from the beginning. And you know, when she would ask, I would always be honest. You know, for me, I always find that what's in the dark will eventually come to light. So for me, honesty is key as much as you can. But of course, there are things that I chose not to tell her. And I feel like a lot of these things were things that I didn't feel like maybe she could handle straight away, or that might scare her off, or that I feel like even insecurities. That's one of the main things that you would keep away from, because at the end of the day, no one really wants to show weakness or vulnerability to a certain degree. So I feel like if there were anything I kept from her, those were the things I kept from her. But as time went on, I think it's not so much I told her, she saw it. So you can only have a guard or whatever for so long. Eventually, when you spend enough time with that person, it will slowly break and she'll see the cracks. And you don't even need to tell them, they'll see it. But one thing about women is women are very good at pretending they don't see anything. So she can see it. So when you bring it up, it won't be news to her. But so yeah. But then again, it's like I've got a good friend, and he's like complete. He's like a rock. He doesn't. Like, for him to even say I love you, he's got a missus. For him to say I love you, it's he's just like emotions, and that's not him at all. And sometimes I wonder, how does he? But I guess that's him, and he's found someone that kind of understands that's who he is, and he doesn't really. I don't think even I've known him for over 6-7 years, and he even struggles to tell me the bare minimum. And so I wouldn't say it's not that he's not comfortable with me. I would just say I think by now I realized that's just who he is. You won't get him to open up. And now and again he does open up. It's random. is when he chooses to and is random. You will never sit him down and, oh, let's have a heart talk. That's not gonna happen. So I think everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's.
And even with that, like, I think it's just kind of based off what you're all saying. It's important to just know what the person's like. And I think that comes with, you know, spending time with them. You will see what they're like. Okay, are they a private person? Are they open person? You'll be able to tell if this person's naturally more open or naturally more reserved about their life. And that's how you're going to know that, oh, if they start opening up more, they're like, okay, interesting. Or if they're shutting down because they're just that sort of person that has a bunch of layers. I think that all comes from observing and just not assuming things and just letting them show themselves, essentially. And I think oftentimes that's not necessarily done so well. It's like, okay, there'll be one sign, like, oh my gosh, maybe he loves me because he did that. Or like, there'll be very, very few things that happen. And you're just like, oh, you kind of read into it too much. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a thing where over time you see. And this is why I guess giving things time is important. Taking steps back is important. Not overthinking is important. And even just communicating how you are feeling at a certain point is important too. And so just to wrap it up, we're going to just go around in terms of, okay, someone watching this, obviously this is about signs to know that someone's serious or serious about you. So just to wrap it up, to someone who's, you know, just thinking, again, general signs, whatever, could you just give, or kind of go around and give some general signs to look at? And even, I think consistency is a big thing anyway. But yeah, some signs that you guys would say, these are good signs that may or may not mean that they're interested or not. So we'll start from Isaze.
Chat. I think this is one thing that I struggle with in terms of me being 100% transparent. Can you come back to me?
You know, it's all good.
I'm actually still thinking. If you can come back to me.
Okay, let's start with comfort.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So what's some signs, more signs that you would say would indicate that someone is likely interested or serious? Because I think there's interested and there's actually serious about you. There's definitely a difference between that. So yeah.
I think I've really touched on it. Consistency and time that they want to spend with you and how much they want to know about you. And just like, you know, they want to fill up your time. They want to, like, for my husband, he barricaded me. That's what I called it, because it was like no man had access to me. He basically sealed me. So it was like every time that I had was filled with him. So like just kind of like intentionality, just like being present, you know, like just always showing yourself available. But it differs for everyone, I think. But I think the consistency is quite important, because like even if the person works a really stressful job and they work really long hours, the fact that they take time out of their evening or just before they go to bed to contact you, that is very important. Like, you know, that willingness to communicate with you, you know, however little it is. Yeah.
I think something you touched on is sacrifice, essentially. You know, your husband, they essentially, he showed you by sacrificing his time. Like he sacrificed to make sure that he was in your life, and he knew, and you knew that he was interested in stuff. I think that's a big thing. That word. Charles, what about you?
No, that was some very good points, Comfort, you made actually. You know, the time and dedication. One thing I'll say is definitely that's one of the key things to look out for is the amount of time that they want to spend with you, and also the conversations too. Sometimes I feel like when someone's serious about you can tell by the direction of conversations what they want to talk about, how interested in you that they actually are. And when I say just, you know, not just generic questions, but in your life and what's going on with you and how much are they listening to what you're saying. So if you ask them something a few days later about what you said, would they even remember? And yes, they might have bad memory, but if it's a consistent thing, perchance that they're not listening to you. And you know, one thing I'll say is obviously look out for also actions, and I don't mean gift buying or whatnot. I just means how they carry themselves and whatnot, and also how they carry themselves around other women or other men, or how do they respect themselves. Just these are key things you need to kind of because at the end of the day you don't want to be made to look like a fool, to put it bluntly. And for me also it's I think I'm trying to look at it from a guy's point of view. um that's, yeah, for me that's the main things. And also, does he, how can I put it this way, when you start being serious about someone, yeah, like I said, you take a genuine interest. Does he sometimes, does he go out of his way to be of help to you, to something that he knows that you're going through, without you having to kind of goad him into it? Sort of like, oh, by the way, Abigail, I know you wanted to do this. I've got this, and maybe I can help you. Just these. He actually wants to put in effort into energy. He thinks about you outside of you guys talking, and outside of, he wants to do something for you away from the general quote unquote conversations and time you guys spend together. And yeah, so the key thing is how consistent is he, and how much, I can answer them help. But yeah, how much is he really how much does he really, like I said, how much does he really want it? And you can tell by the way he acts and the way he goes about things. But the key thing to also keep an eye out for, like I said, is the conversations. Keep out, what's the topic, what does he always want to talk about, and that will kind of give it away.
Yeah, no, I agree with that actually. Go on,
Sorry,
Comfort,
Abigail,
yeah.
I just wanted to mention that it does work both ways, because I've realized that we're just saying the guy, but
Yeah.
just like sometimes girls do give mixed signals as well. So
Mad.
yeah, like it works both ways.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it does.
it works, because I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Obviously, you'd want to know if the girl that you're with was feeling you too. So yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember
No,
my husband saying, he didn't know whether I was, like, the times when I seemingly didn't text back, he was like, okay, what is she? Is she with me or not? That kind of thing. So yeah.
No, I agree. I think I've I've been in the boat of not intentionally, but like can give mixed signals at times. So that's interesting. But yeah, so I say, what about you when it comes to this question? Have you thoughts?
God bless you guys. You helped me. Because I didn't know. I think, if I'm honest, I think it's different for every person.
Yeah.
As in, I remember me understanding how difficult I can be as a person. As in, things that are normal to other people, it wasn't necessarily normal for me. And let's just say, for example, some people would speak to someone every day, message someone every day. For me, beforehand, I'm not like this anymore. That's my preference. Beforehand, it could be like every once a week. What's going on? How are you, kind of thing? So some people will look at that and think this person's definitely not. But at the time, I would be. But there's no way the person will pick that up, because I'm just different. Some people, I have friends who do not value quality time at all. Like, even in terms of male friendships, boy to bore me once in 6 months. that's the shocker. But then they would value, let's just say, sending someone, let's say, acts of service, or sending someone a gift or something, kind of thing. So I think it is understanding the person. But I do think what the most important things are the things that people can't hide. Like, whether it is time or whatever, no matter, you can't be in someone's presence for so long if you don't like them, kind of thing. You're not going to get frustrated about certain things or upset about certain things if you don't care about them. You're not going to actually go out. So these things will be expressed in many different ways for every person. But I think for me, the sign will just be things that the person wouldn't do if they didn't like it. There's certain things you actually can't hide. And the person wouldn't even know that they're showing it. Sometimes it could even be, God forbid, but it could be stuff like jealousy, etc. But I'm not saying these things are good, but I'm saying there's certain things where the person wouldn't know that they are displaying it. But the fact that this is being shown, maybe that's the way in which they naturally would express, or they are given away unintentionally that, okay, that's how they feel, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I guess even with that communication thing you said, it's very interesting, because I think everyone's different, and it's not even just a guy thing where you know, oh, you may not text as frequently. I'm that sort of person that I'm not that, you know, everyday sort of texter, and I know that. And so again, it's just knowing yourself and kind of being okay with that, and or communicating it. So I'm gonna put this up, and then we're gonna end. So Chris said that his wife didn't show that she was interested, so he always gave up. So I think, yeah, I think as you're saying, comfort, sometimes it can be the women giving the mixed signals, and it can confuse the guys too. But I guess this is a whole thing of like communicating, just making sure you continue to understand that person, hang out with them, and just see signs and behaviors and stuff. But as I think Charles alluded to, and kind of all of you, it's just, I guess we need to just make sure we trust God in this, and we hear from God. I think that's important about any area of life, that we make sure that we commit these people that we're pursuing, these people that are pursuing us, to God, and we hear from him, because he should have the final say in these sort of situations, as well as us having wisdom, and as well as us seeking godly counsel. So we're going to end on that. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being part of this lovely panel. We're going to be back next week, Thursday, maybe at 8 p.m. So make sure you subscribe, people watching, like it, share it, and I hope you guys have a great week. Do you guys have any last words you want to give to the viewers, or are you guys good?
You watching Adegail's channel. Subscribe, like, share.
Thank you. But yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you guys, and I hope this was edifying. Take care. Bye.
Bye.